Up to 13 million jobs lost in less than a month amid government closing economy to win the war on the Chinese coronavirus. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about the latest jobs numbers as well as these unemployment claims numbers. Basically, in the past week alone, we've lost 6.6 million jobs. That comes to the top 3.3 million jobs. Bringing it to a total of 10 million jobs that have been lost just in the unemployment claims reports. These are people who go to file for unemployment during this downturn that has been created by the government, basically closing all 50 states, have schools closed. The 38 have issued stay-at-home orders. 45 has stay-at-home orders in some parts of the states, but 38 have it statewide, and it's effectively shut down all of their economies. And that brings the total unemployment claims in the past 2 weeks up to about 10 million, already dwarfing the job losses that were seen in the financial crisis and 2007 to 2009 recession. That topped 8.3 million jobs lost. It took 3 years to lose those jobs from about the end of 2006 all the way to the end of 2009. And then it would take another 4 years to get the 8 million jobs back. Basically that was happening as mortgage markets were cratering, labor markets as well, and the property values were collapsing. Now the losses bringing what was the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years at 3.5%, all the way up to 4.4% in March, almost instantaneously as a result of shutting down the economy, encouraging people to stay home. Congress, in addition, has passed a $2.2 trillion package that has expanded unemployment benefits. It's going to shore up payrolls for small businesses as well as larger businesses via hundreds of billions of dollars of financing, all to encourage people to stay home and not to catch this virus so that they can slow it down and hopefully squish this bug within the next month or so. And then we can go back to work. Hopefully they reopen the schools rapidly and then people can really get back to work. As it is, I suspect that most of the schools will remain closed until August or September, although a lot of them are starting distance learning or are already doing distance learning. So we do need to pay attention to the latest jobs numbers, but the data is incomplete. The household survey was taken in the middle of the month. The one to watch will be next month's report, and we're still a couple of weeks away to go before the April numbers will be tabulated by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So you can want to check out unemployment claims reports, and you can basically add them from anywhere to 10 to, I say, 13 million, because in March alone, 3 million Americans lost their jobs in the household survey, and that's a record. Add the past 2 weeks data, where we know that 10 million people filed for unemployment claims. I say it could be anywhere from 10 million to 13 million. It's possible that the 10 million, the 3 million in the report from the unemployment is actually included in those 10 million. So I say anywhere from 10 to 13 million or up to 13 million. Now, one mitigating factor that will keep the actual reported unemployment rate low is that how BLS counts, the Bureau of Labor Statistics counts the civilian labor force. If you're not looking for work, then you're not going to be counted as unemployed. And they say in March that it fell by a whopping 1.6 million, and it said the number of unemployed rose by 1.3 million. And so that adds up to the 3 million people who lost their jobs. And again, you're not counted as technically unemployed if you're not looking for work. So if for next month's report, BLS says that those who lost their jobs were temporarily furloughed and not looking for work, that might keep the reported unemployment rate quite low, but misleadingly low, I would say. For those not accustomed to looking at those reports, just pay no attention to it. Look at how many people the household survey, households say they are working, they have jobs. That'll tell you how many jobs we've lost. So far, 3 million, then 10 million on top of that for the unemployment claims. So next month's unemployment report is going to be catastrophic. Now, to provide relief, Congress has provided the $2.2 trillion. That includes $350 billion for small businesses to meet payroll, $500 billion for checks for household, $500 billion for critical industries, as well as another $50 billion for tax credits, job retention tax credits for larger employers. Additional lending facilities from the Fed will bring that number up to $6 trillion if necessary to tap into if the pandemic goes on longer than expected. Now, the week was lost by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi basically saying, oh, we got to add all this new stuff to the bill. Well, that looms large now. In the week that Congress was basically negotiating for this big package that ended up being $2.2 trillion, more than 6 million people lost their jobs. So that kind of looms large. Now, to prevent a long, deep recession, the federal government has to make these economic incentives to maintain payroll for the duration of the pandemic available now. I think aggressive advertising is going to be needed for that. And whatever Congress did, now it's up to the Trump administration to put these policies into effect and to basically unleash the relief monies, particularly for those small businesses. But sadly, the news media, they're acting like Tokyo Rose right now. Tokyo Rose was kind of a propaganda that the Imperial Japan was broadcasting in the South Pacific and North America to demoralize Allied forces. And that's what the mainstream media reminds me of, because even when Congress does something, even when they open up these lending facilities, White House says small business lending will begin Friday, but J.P. Morgan says it's not ready. Now, in the meantime, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, all these banks, they were going to kick out the funds, and they already are. They're already making these small business loans. But this is a report a day before they're about to launch the credit facilities for small businesses, saying, oh, we're not ready yet. You're not going to get your money. Here's another example of that. Memo, some in the U.S. will not get stimulus checks until August. So the $500 billion of checks, if you did direct deposit, that's going to get into your bank account pretty quickly. But for everyone else, if you didn't use direct deposit, well, you're going to be waiting for months. And again, this is all designed to demoralize the American people. Associated Press, CNBC, you're not doing anyone any favors. In fact, you're demoralizing people. And I compare you to Tokyo Rose. You know, you're basically not on board. You're hoping that people won't get their money. You're hoping that the small businesses will fail, because then you can say, oh, it's Trump's fault, right? It's all partisan. It's all about the election. It's an election year. So we can't let people get behind Trump. So we're going to try to keep down his support as much as possible. And we're going to send out these kind of fake news headlines that may or may not, it may be that it takes a little bit longer for the stimulus checks to get printed for people who didn't do direct deposit. But the idea that they're going to be waiting, it's going to take 4 months to do that, well, maybe that'll be true, but I tend to doubt it. I think that the administration wants to kick out the money much quicker, and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, he's saying he wants to get this money to the American people within 2 weeks, and then the paper checks will follow thereafter. And I just think that these headlines and what the mainstream media is doing, they're very irresponsible. And again, they want you to believe that Trump wants you to lose your job. Trump wants you to die from the virus. Even as President Trump and his administration are moving mountains of regulation, not just for the economic relief, but also improving new antiviral treatments to treat the coronavirus, the Chinese coronavirus, COVID-19, and new testing to test for the virus, the antibody test. All that has to be approved by FDA. They're deregulating, they're waiving the legal restrictions into national emergency. Now, while delays are to be expected in the normal course of business, the determination of President Trump and his administration to tackle this problem caused by the closures is admirable. They had a considerable foresight. They said, well, if we're going to encourage people to stay home, then we need to make certain that we are going to provide economic support so that, these 30 million small businesses, they're not going to disappear. They're not going to go extinct. We need to ensure that. And then the economic damage, because if all those businesses disappear, if Congress hadn't put the supports in place and then told everyone to stay home, it could have been a catastrophe. We could have a long, deep recession anyways, or depression, even with what we're doing with the supports. Imagine if those supports weren't in place, they tell everyone to stay home, and then tens of millions of businesses are failing. It'd be a catastrophe, worse than the financial crisis, maybe even worse than the Great Depression. And I'll leave you with the close here. Now, how long and deep the recession will be largely determined by the extent of the pandemic, how long the states remain closed, and how effective social distancing is. When the pandemic is over, it will be up to the states to reopen as quickly as possible, and the emergency benefits encouraging people not to work have to be phased out. The sooner that's done, the sooner the economy will come back. The long-term consequences of delay could mean that it takes over a decade to recover economically from this virus, with much of the damage already done. That's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good day.